Many of us have shared the same fantasy, packing a single bag, boarding a midnight train, and leaving every regret behind in the dark. In The Last Train to Willow Creek, that fantasy is personified by a forgotten station, isolated between two hills and far removed from the noise of the modern world. We find Emma waiting there. She wears a long gray coat and carries a specific exhaustion, an exhaustion from the weight of her own thoughts, rather than the physical miles she's traveled. Emma checks the station clock. It's 11:28. She has 17 minutes until the final train of the night arrives and continues into darkness. She has her ticket and her suitcase, yet the distance she's already covered hasn't seemed to lighten the load she's carrying. To reach this platform, Emma pushed herself through 2 buses and a several-mile walk. She has gone to extreme lengths to find this specific pocket of isolation. This map illustrates the geographical cure, the belief that physical relocation resolves internal distress. But as the dot moves from point A to B, the heavy shape representing emotional baggage remains tethered. Because the tether never breaks, the trauma simply follows the traveler. Moving across a map creates an illusion of progress, but that progress is hollow if the mind at the center of the journey remains stagnant. Thomas, the station master, represents the opposite of Emma's frantic motion. For 40 years, he has performed the ritual of weeding with a brass lantern, even when no passengers are expected. When Emma asks about the train to Willow Creek, Thomas reminds her that she is already there. He shifts her focus away from the next destination and back to the ground she is currently standing on. Thomas warns her that the train is sometimes years late. He is measuring time by emotional readiness, suggesting that the train only arrives when the passenger is actually prepared to leave. Reaching a new life depends on more than a railway schedule. It demands the patience to sit in the stillness and recognize why you're standing on the platform to begin with. Emma's suitcase is small, but it contains the entire history she is trying to outrun. Inside the suitcase are 3 distinct layers of baggage: memories, represented by old photographs, regrets, as an unsent letter, and avoidance, within an unopened wooden box. These categories represent the exact history Emma claims she wants to leave behind. By carefully packing these specific items, Emma is actually preserving her past, packaging the very history she wants to forget so she can carry it into her future. Relocating an object is a physical act. Letting it go is an emotional one. Because until she finally opens that small wooden box, the suitcase will weigh exactly the same regardless of where she takes it. At 11:45, the sound of the train finally emerges from the distance, offering Emma the exit she's been seeking. Before she boards, Thomas has one final question for her. The story leaves this question unasked, because at this point, the physical arrival of the train is no longer the most important event. Unexamined memories ride in the seat next to us until we choose to process them. Real change only truly begins when we stop looking at the tracks and finally choose to look inside the box. Freedom resides in the quiet stillness required to accept our burdens, rather than at the end of a railway line.
Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're unpacking the absolutely beautiful, kind of haunting narrative of The Last Train to Willow Creek. I want you to really picture this with me, okay? You're standing on a dark, totally desolate train platform. The wind is picking up, the rails are starting to tremble under your feet. It's this incredibly eerie, metaphor-rich atmosphere, and it sets the absolute perfect stage for a deep dive into human psychology, grief, and the agonizing choices we make when we feel backed into a corner. So let's jump right in and deconstruct this profound little interaction between a woman named Emma and an old man named Thomas. But right off the bat, before we even meet Emma on that platform, I actually want you to think about this question for a second. In your own life, when you've made a massive change, maybe you packed up and moved to a new city, quit a job out of nowhere, or ended a long relationship, what was your true motivation? Were you actually running toward happiness, or were you just running away from pain? It's a remarkably heavy question, isn't it? Just pause and reflect on that for a moment. Because honestly, we so often trick ourselves into thinking we're chasing something new and positive, when in reality, we're literally just sprinting away from something that hurts. And that right there is the exact internal conflict we're about to explore. Okay, let's dive into section 1, the urge to escape and chasing a new beginning. So we find Emma sitting alone on a wooden bench in the dark. And when Thomas, this old man who's just lingering at the station, asks her why she's leaving, she gives this super familiar response. She says, "I need a new beginning." But Thomas, he doesn't just buy that. He's watched literally thousands of people leave this exact station, and he's noticed they all fall into one of 3 buckets. You've got the people running toward happiness, the people running away from pain, and then the most tragic group, the ones who simply don't know the difference. By laying it out like this, he's subtly challenging Emma to take a hard look in the mirror and figure out which of those categories she actually belongs to. And this brings up what is honestly one of the core psychological lessons of the whole story. Thomas looks at her and says, "We think we need a new place when what we really need is a new heart." Wow. It is just a brilliant distillation of what psychologists call the geographical cure fallacy. It's that totally misguided belief that just changing our location is going to magically fix our internal emotional mess. Like, you can pack your bags, you can buy the ticket, you can board the train, but if your heart is still broken or weighed down with unresolved pain, a shiny new zip code isn't going to change a single thing. Which brings us nicely to section 2, the heavy wooden box and the weight of unresolved grief. As the rumble of the train wheels starts growing louder in the distance, Thomas spots something. There's this small wooden box just barely peeking out of the slightly open zipper of Emma's suitcase. It's a physical metaphor, sitting right there between them. But when he asks her about it, she immediately snaps the bag shut, gets super defensive, and just says, "Nothing." Thomas just gives this little knowing smile and drops an incredible truth bomb. Nothing can be very heavy. Think about that. By claiming this box contains nothing, Emma is actually revealing everything. She's actively denying her trauma. And as Thomas so wisely points out, the sheer energy it takes to keep up that denial, to carry around this giant void you refuse to acknowledge, is almost always the heaviest burden of all.
What Emma's doing in this exact moment is a textbook example of emotional avoidance. It's the act of ignoring or turning away from painful triggers, which paradoxically just causes them to become a way heavier psychological burden as time goes on. The story lets us know Emma has been hyper aware that the box was in there all day long. She's been lugging it around, all while swearing to herself she never ever open it again. But Thomas warns her that the very things we refuse to open are exactly the things that weigh us down the most. Her avoidance, that's the real anchor keeping her stuck on this cold platform.
All right, moving on to section 3, changing places versus hearts and confronting what we leave behind. Now, what's really interesting here is how the tension starts to spike. Thomas gently suggests she should just open the box, and Emma flat out refuses. We're seeing a massive clash of worldviews here. Emma argues some things are better left in the past, and look, we've all been there, right? It's such a common defense mechanism. Just lock it away, throw away the key, and keep walking. But Thomas completely dismantles this illusion of moving on. He counters her by saying there's a difference between leaving the past behind and being afraid to look at it. Boom. He is stripping away every single one of her rationalizations. Because true healing, true, genuine forward momentum, it requires you to actually look right at the thing that hurt you. You can't truly leave the past behind if you're constantly terrified it's going to sneak up and tap you on the shoulder. Cornered by this undeniable truth, Emma finally breaks. The tears start falling, the station lights flicker above them, and she spills the tragic sequence of events that actually brought her to this station in the middle of the night. The box, it belonged to someone who was gone. Someone she never even got to say goodbye to. Look at how this tragedy unfolds. First, they had a massive argument. It was the very last time she ever spoke to him, and she was so angry. Second, he tried to call her later, and she intentionally ignored it, let it ring. Third, he passes away. And finally, she is left stranded in years of agonizing regret. She confesses to Thomas that she spent years torturing herself, fully believing that if she had just picked up that one single phone call, everything would have been different. She's literally crumbling under the crushing weight of what if. At this point, Emma is desperate for comfort. She expects Thomas to pat her on the back and say, "Hey, it wasn't your fault." But Thomas, he doesn't do that. Instead, as the piercing shriek of the train whistle echoes in the distance, he forcefully strips away her illusion of control. He suggests that actually, maybe everything would have happened exactly as it did anyway. And then he delivers this stark, totally uncomforting, but beautifully liberating truth. We spend so much of our lives trying to rewrite moments that cannot be changed. But yesterday does not listen to us. It does not return. It does not explain itself. It simply becomes part of our story. It's harsh, but it's real. You absolutely cannot rewrite the past. You can only find a way to integrate it into your present.
And that leads us to our fourth and final section, the final question and the ultimate choice. The train finally pulls in. Its massive headlights completely flood the dark station, blindingly bright. The screech of the wheels softens into a hiss, and the last train to Willow Creek comes to a dead halt. The door slides open, and if you look up, the clock above the platform reads exactly 11:45. That specific time represents the incredibly fleeting, tiny window of her decision. The train is waiting. The doors are open. She can step onto it right now and try to leave everything behind. Or she can stay on the platform and finally face whatever is inside that wooden box. Time's up. The hypothetical is now reality. Before she can even make a move, Thomas lifts his old brass lantern and offers one last, absolutely crucial piece of wisdom. He looks at her and says, "Wherever you go, your memories will travel with you." It's the ultimate warning, isn't it? Like, sure, you can board that train at 11:45, you can ride it all the way to the absolute end of the line. But the baggage you packed, all that grief, the guilt, the echoes of those unanswered calls, they're gonna be sitting right there waiting for you the second you unpack your suitcase in that brand new city. And with that, Thomas leaves Emma, and frankly, all of us, with one final parting thought. He just asks her, softly, "Are you leaving because you have found peace, or because you are hoping distance will hide your pain?" As Emma stands there on the concrete, totally frozen, realizing for the very first time that she might not actually be ready to leave, I want to leave that exact same profound question lingering with you today. Look inward. Take a real, honest look at your own wooden boxes and ask yourself, what is really driving your journey? Thank you so much for exploring this with me. Catch you next time.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the really profound psychological themes hiding just beneath the surface of that beautiful fictional excerpt of The Last Train to Willow Creek. If you love digging into the deeper meaning behind a text, well, you are definitely in the right place. We're going to explore how a seemingly simple story about a train station is actually a complete masterclass on regret, forgiveness, and the choices that basically shape our entire lives.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you just missed it? Like your absolute final chance to fix a huge mistake just slipped right through your fingers? That heavy, sinking feeling gets right to the emotional core of our story today. We're following Emma, a character standing on this cold, dimly lit platform at midnight, and she's facing a choice that resonates with absolutely all of us. She's right at the edge of the tracks, and we're going to walk through her journey to see exactly what it can teach us about our own.
All right, section 1, the escape versus the anchor. This is where the physical setup actually acts as a brilliant metaphor for her internal struggle.
Emma's dilemma at the train station isn't really about travel at all, is it? She's caught in this massive tug-of-war. On one hand, boarding the train brings the promise of escaping. Waking up in a new town, anonymity, leaving the past behind. It sounds peaceful, almost perfect, right? But then there's the anchor. This small wooden box packed inside her suitcase. It holds the profound weight of her history and her unresolved past, and she suddenly realizes she just isn't quite ready to leave it behind.
So, the absolutely crucial point is what happens next. Emma actually makes a move. She lifts her suitcase, walks right up to the train, and her hand literally touches the metal railing of the open door. But suddenly, she stops. This memory comes rushing back to her. A warm summer afternoon, a small garden, someone laughing beside her, and a voice saying, "Don't be afraid to make mistakes." This memory, which she had been actively trying to block out, suddenly feels strangely comforting, and it physically stops her in her tracks.
Which brings us to section 2, the illusion of last chances.
Because she stepped back, Emma watches the train disappear into the darkness until its final light just fades away. She missed it. But as she sits back down, a character named Thomas, who's been waiting quietly on the platform the whole time, guides her through a pretty massive revelation. Emma asks if there will be another train, and he tells her there's another one tomorrow night, noting, "The last train comes every night." This brilliantly shifts what the last train actually represents. Emma is confused, obviously, asking why people call it the last train then. Thomas smiles and tells her the truth. It's because every night someone believes it's their last chance. The text redefines the whole concept of a last chance, not as a physical limitation, but as a self-imposed myth. It's entirely a psychological state. Thomas points out how incredibly weird our relationship with time really is. He says, "We spend years wishing we could go back. Then one day, we realize we have been given another moment, and we don't know what to do with it." It's so true, isn't it? We literally beg for second chances, but when we're finally presented with one, we just freeze up in hesitation. Emma is frozen on that platform, terrified she's wasted too much time, totally unsure of what to do at the moment she is currently in.
Moving on to Section 3, the mechanics of forgiveness. How do we actually process a second chance? This brings us to the core philosophical lesson of the text. Emma is carrying years of regret over an argument, an unanswered call, and a letter she never sent. So how do you actually process a second chance when you're lugging around all that heavy baggage? Well, Thomas assures her that everyone deserves a second chance, especially people who have made terrible mistakes. She asks the ultimate question, what if I can't forgive myself? And Thomas gives her the step-by-step roadmap. Step 1, acknowledge you cannot change the past. Step 2, begin by forgiving the person you were when you made the mistake. Step 3, choose who you will become. Thomas emphasizes that a second chance doesn't mean magically rewinding to your old life. Sometimes it means actively becoming someone entirely different. I really want to let this punchy, poignant quote just resonate for a second, because you cannot change who you were, only who you choose to become. It's such an important distinction. The text is basically telling us that self-forgiveness isn't about justifying bad actions. Actually, Thomas explicitly tells her to forgive herself not because what you did was right. Rather, it's about enabling forward momentum. You simply cannot change the past version of you, so all your energy has to be spent on who you are choosing to be right now. And that leads us right into Section 4, opening the wooden box. It's time to confront the baggage. After this profound conversation, the station gets super quiet again. The platform lights return to their gentle glow. Emma opens her suitcase and finally pulls out that old wooden box with a silver mark on the lid. Thomas looks at it and asks if she's ready. Emma shakes her head and honestly admits no. But Thomas smiles and says, "That's all right. You don't have to be ready for everything. Sometimes you simply have to be willing." That incredibly comforting advice gives her the courage to finally interact with the box. She doesn't need to be completely healed or perfectly prepared. She just needs the sheer willingness to try. So, taking a deep breath, she slowly opens it. And inside, we find 3 things: an old photograph, a small key, and a folded piece of paper. You can picture it. Her hands are literally trembling as she reaches in and picks up the paper. She unfolds it. There are only a few words written on it. Words she had never seen before. Words that had just been waiting for her, patiently, for years. And as her eyes move across the page, something inside her heart really begins to change. The excerpt leaves us with this incredible thought. The message we need most is the one we were too afraid to read. Reading those unseen words fundamentally shifts her entire perspective. The station clock has ticked past midnight. The physical train is long gone, but Emma no longer feels like she missed her chance. Actually, her decision to not take that train of escape turns out to be the true beginning of her journey home. So, here is the final question I want to leave you with today. What is inside your wooden box, and are you willing to open it? Think about the baggage, the regrets, or maybe the unsent letters you might be carrying around in your own life. The story of Willow Creek is a beautiful reminder that the last train is really just a myth. Your next chance is waiting right there on the platform with you, as long as you're willing to forgive who you were and consciously choose who you want to become. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope exploring these concepts gave you some really valuable clarity today.
Have you ever felt completely trapped by a memory you just can't seem to shake? Well, welcome to our explainer on part 4 of The Last Train to Willow Creek. Today, we're diving into the anatomy of an emotional breakthrough. We're going to explore how a single night on an empty, quiet railway platform completely flips a person's life upside down, and honestly, what it teaches all of us about the psychology of grief and healing. So let's start by looking directly at Emma's pivotal, deeply human question. How do you forgive someone who isn't here? This one thought absolutely sets the stage for her entire internal journey tonight. I mean, it perfectly captures that agonizing feeling of being stuck in unresolved pain, especially when the person you so desperately need closure from is just no longer around to give it to you. Let's move into Section 1, the weight of memory. The source paints this incredibly vivid picture of Emma physically clinging to her past. She's holding this simple, few-lined letter in trembling hands, reading it over and over again. It's such a powerful, relatable image. We all do this, right? We try to literally force answers out of the past, searching in the blank spaces between the words for absolutely anything to ease the grief. And that brings us to this profound observation from the station master, Thomas. He says, "We spend years waiting for an apology, only to discover that what we really needed was permission to forgive." It's a real light bulb moment. He sees that Emma is trapped, waiting for an apology she is never, ever going to get. And so he gently guides her to this realization that she actually holds the power to grant her own closure. It's a total game changer.
Which takes us to Section 2, Forgiving the Final Chapter. Emma pulls out this old photograph of herself and her lost loved one. They're younger in it, just standing and smiling beside a small garden. Now, looking at this specific, joyful image actually sparks a forgotten memory for her. On the very day this photo was taken, they had gotten into a pretty bad argument. But by the end of the day, they were laughing together. Looking at this artifact forces her to confront the whole reality of their relationship, not just how it ended.
This right here is the exact moment of her epiphany. You can see her mindset completely shift from being hyper-focused on one painful moment, that final argument, to suddenly remembering a lifetime of love and years of kindness. She realizes, kind of with a shock, that she had allowed one painful final chapter to unjustly overwrite a beautiful history. She let that final argument become bigger than an entire lifetime of love. And it meets perfectly into this incredible piece of wisdom from Thomas. We often remember the wound and forget the hands that once helped us heal. It hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? As humans, we have this profound, almost magnetic tendency to fixate on the final hurt, completely overshadowing the love and support that came before it. Hearing this, Emma finally gets it. She realizes she's been focusing on the wrong thing all this time. Now let's explore Section 3, Shifting Grief to Gratitude. Thomas offers her this really gentle but absolutely vital reminder of the things that are not lost. The love you shared, the lessons you learned, the kindness you received. Yes, she lost someone, and yeah, that is undeniably painful. But he makes this crucial point. Losing someone's physical presence does not mean you lose the beautiful, intangible gifts they brought into your life. Those remain yours forever. For years, Emma had been carrying her grief like a punishment. She genuinely felt that suffering was the only way to prove her love was real. But in this quiet, peaceful moment on the platform, she finally understands she doesn't have to suffer endlessly just to honor someone's memory. She can choose gratitude instead. It's a massively liberating realization. 1 o'clock, and then 2 o'clock. As the old station clock slowly ticks through the night, you can feel the passage of time reflecting a calming peace that is finally washing over Emma. The night itself grows quieter, and it perfectly mirrors this newfound quietness in her own heart, especially after years of just chaotic inner turmoil. And that brings us to our final part, Section 4, The Key to Tomorrow. Thomas offers Emma a place to rest in the old waiting room. And when she acts surprised that he'd let a total stranger sleep there, notice how beautifully he reframes her identity. He doesn't call her a stranger at all. He calls her someone who hasn't found the right train yet. He reimagines her as a traveler who just needs a little bit more time to find her true way. It's a wonderful perspective shift. Now, once inside this waiting room, Emma discovers an old wooden box, and inside it is a small silver key. For years, she had wondered what this key opens. It serves as this brilliant physical symbol of all the unresolved mysteries in her life. It's a perfect parallel to the emotional locks she's just started to crack open out there on the platform. When she asks Thomas about it, we get a really fascinating reaction. Thomas actually recognizes the key. His expression changes for just a fleeting second, but he stays completely silent on its purpose. He simply tells her that it is a story for tomorrow. He's got this philosophical belief that some answers just shouldn't be rushed. They're best discovered one morning at a time. Right before he leaves her to sleep, Thomas lays out these monumental stakes for the next morning. It's a massive decision laid out in 2 simple steps. Take the train or stop running. When the sun comes up, she's gonna have to choose whether to keep fleeing from her past or to finally stand her ground and face whatever that silver key unlocks. So as the wind moves gently across the empty platform, Emma sleeps peacefully on the wooden bench. For the first time in years, she is actually unafraid of tomorrow. And as she sleeps, completely unaware, we learn that this small silver key is going to lead her to a childhood place, into an old promise that's been waiting for her all these years. Which leaves us with one final, lingering question to chew on. Was destiny and this old promise the real reason she missed the last train? I mean, perhaps it wasn't an accident at all, but a necessary pause to allow her to heal so she could finally unlock the promise waiting for her. Think about that for a second. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I truly hope it helps you find a bit of clarity on your own journey.
Welcome back to The Explainer. We've finally made it. Today, we're diving right into the highly anticipated conclusion of our journey, the last train to Willow Creek, the final lesson.
So, remember how we left Emma in that intense, emotionally turbulent night at the lonely station? Well, as we open on part 5, the scene completely transforms. The heavy darkness of that long night has finally disappeared. Instead, it's replaced by this soft golden light filtering through the old station windows. Emma wakes up to the familiar rumble of railway tracks, but the station itself, it feels so much more peaceful. And sitting right beside her is that same small wooden box. It still contains exactly what it held in the dark: the old photograph, the letter, and of course, that mysterious silver key. When she steps outside onto the platform, there's Thomas, with his brass lantern hanging by his side. Thomas points out that sometimes just a little bit of peace is enough to begin again. But then he brings her right back to reality. She has a choice to make. What is she going to do with that key?
Before we follow Emma and Thomas out into the hills, let me just ask you something. If you had a key to your absolute happiest childhood memory, would you turn the lock? It's kind of a profound thought to sit with, isn't it? Take a second to think about your own past. Think about your memories, and maybe those spaces you've locked away as you grew older. Because this is exactly the threshold Emma is standing at right now. She's just staring at this silver key in her hand, wondering what it's truly meant for.
Okay, let's dive into this physical journey they take next. Thomas tells her to come with him, and they start walking away from the old railway tracks. The sensory details here are just incredibly striking. They're walking down this narrow path, the morning air is crisp and cool, birds are actually singing in the trees, and there's the quiet sound of a river following right alongside them. This vibrant, beautiful environment is a complete 180 from the cold, anxious night Emma just lived through. Eventually, they cross a small wooden bridge which leads them straight into a narrow forest road. And the second they get there, Emma just freezes. She recognizes this place. It's from many, many years ago, back when she was just a kid. At the very end of this familiar path, they come up to a small, old wooden door. It's just standing there, completely alone, nestled between two ancient trees. The paint on it has almost entirely faded away. You can imagine Emma's heart is just pounding as she gets closer. She notices a small silver lock on this weathered door. And no way. That lock is shaped exactly like the key she's been gripping in her hand this whole time. Now, Thomas didn't know for sure that this would be a perfect fit, but Emma slowly slides the key in, turns the lock, and the door opens.
So let's see how this builds, because what she finds inside is absolutely stunning. It's a small garden completely overflowing with wildflowers and just bathed in morning sunlight. But you know, this isn't just a physical location. In the grand allegory of Emma's journey, this garden actually represents a return to her happiest childhood days. It's a return to a time before life got so complicated. We're talking way before anger and regret ever took root. It is literally the purest space of her entire past.
Now, what's really fascinating here is what this space reveals about Emma's forgotten history. Right in the center of this sunlit garden is an old wooden bench, and carved directly into the wood are two names. It's Emma's name and the name of the person she had lost. Just touching that carving brings instant tears to her eyes, because this one very specific memory comes rushing back. She remembers being a little girl, sitting right there on that exact bench, watching the sunset with the person she loved. And they made this simple promise: when I grow up, I will always come back. The immense sorrow hits her when she realizes she had completely, totally forgotten this promise. Thomas sits down beside her in the garden and offers this incredibly profound piece of grace. He says, "You didn't forget, you were simply busy surviving." He explains that when life gets tough, and it always does, right? We often forget the promises we made to ourselves. Promises to be kind, to stay grateful, to remain gentle even when the whole world hardens around us. Actually, I want to turn this back to you for a second. What promises to yourself might you have forgotten when your own world became too demanding? It's a really powerful reminder that our forgetting isn't always a betrayal. Sometimes it's literally just a byproduct of surviving. And this brilliantly illustrates the true climax of our explainer today. Sitting there in the garden, Emma finally gets it. She understands why she was brought back to Willow Creek. She realizes this stark, undeniable truth.
The person she lost wasn't just the person from their final painful argument. No, they were the person who laughed with her, cared for her, taught her things, and helped shape exactly who she became. Emma had been dragging around the heavy weight of one painful memory for so long, and because of that, she was accidentally wiping out an entire lifetime of love. This epiphany changes everything for her. It's a real game changer. She looks at Thomas, she looks toward the sunrise, and she finally makes her decision. She just says, "I have to go home." But here is the critical part. She isn't returning so she can run away. She is returning to begin again. Her entire journey to this station was never about escaping her past. It was about facing it head on, understanding it, and finally putting it in its proper context so she could just stop running.
And literally just as she makes this massive resolution, you hear it. The faint sound of a train whistle echoing in the distance. Emma kind of pauses and wonders if the last train is actually still waiting for her, but Thomas just smiles and shakes his head. It's not the last train, it's the next train, he tells her. And this is so beautiful. He says, there is always another train. It's this incredibly comforting metaphor that just instantly deflates all the pressure and panic that completely ruled Emma's previous night.
Let's break down exactly what that metaphor means for all of us. The next train represents another morning, another opportunity, and another chance to make a totally different choice. The beautiful optimism here is that missing one single moment, or even, making a huge mistake in our past, does not mean the journey is over. Not by a long shot. There's always a brand new opportunity to step forward, if we're just willing to take it.
Emma turns back toward the road, completely ready to return home. But before she leaves the station entirely, Thomas stops her for one final exchange. He holds out his brass lantern. Yeah, the exact same one that's been hanging by his side all morning, and he absolutely insists that she take it. Emma is pretty surprised and hesitates for a second, but she carefully accepts the gift. The flame inside is small for sure, but it is incredibly steady. So, the crucial point is understanding the symbolic weight of this gift. Why does Thomas give her the lantern? Well, he tells her that one day someone else might lose their way, and when they do, they might just need her light. You see, the lantern represents the wisdom we carry from our healed wounds. Once we actually resolve our own pain and stop running away from our past, the lessons we've learned transform into this steady light. And that light can help guide others straight through their own darkness. As Emma walks back toward the Willow Creek station, holding on to that steady light, the whole narrative kind of slows down to deliver its ultimate philosophical conclusion. So often we just assume that the only way to move on from a terrible event is to push it away, to lock it out, or to just try and pretend it never happened. But this story completely exposes the flaw in that thinking. We do not find peace by forgetting the past. Instead, we arrive at this absolute core truth. We find peace by learning what the past came to teach us. Emma had to unlock her history. She had to step back into the garden of her memories and remember the love she had completely forgotten, all in order to learn the lesson her grief was holding for her. The journey home truly begins the exact second we stop running away and actually start listening to what our history is trying to tell us.
Which brings us to the final thought of our explainer today. We've walked right alongside Emma through the dark night and into the morning light. We've watched her unlock her memories and finally find her way home. But now, it's your turn. What is your past trying to teach you today? Take that question with you. Let it be a lantern for your own journey. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you next time.
Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something really special. We're embarking on a deeply reflective journey as we unpack the final philosophical lessons of the last train to Willow Creek. If you've been following the story with us, you already know the emotional weight this narrative carries. It's this beautifully crafted exploration of grief, regret, and ultimately healing. So today we're going to break down the exact mechanics of how to move forward when you feel completely anchored to your past, using some incredibly powerful visual metaphors straight from our source material. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's explore how we actually find peace. Okay, let's kick things off with a pretty profound question. Does a story end after a painful chapter? For the longest time, our protagonist, Emma, genuinely believed that hers did. She spent years, literally years, believing that her entire life was defined by this one deeply painful moment, one tragic mistake, and an old promise. And honestly, that's a feeling I think a lot of us can relate to. This question perfectly sets up the emotional stakes for the massive realization Emma is about to have as she stands on that station platform.
Section 1. The Light at Willow Creek.
We rejoin Emma on a peaceful morning at the station.
She's standing there holding this old brass lantern, and for the very first time, the platform doesn't feel lonely. Thomas, the guy who spends his nights at the station, smiles and tells her she brought the light. And guys, this brilliantly illustrates the core metaphor of the entire story. See, Thomas wasn't waiting for literal trains. He was waiting for someone who needed to find their way. The lantern he carries, and the one Emma now holds, it isn't just a piece of metal and glass. It represents hope. Thomas reveals that years ago, he was the one who was lost, and someone gave him not just a lantern, but something way better: hope. He uses that exact same flame to guide people whose lives have completely derailed.
Now, when Emma realizes what Thomas has been doing all this time, she asks a very natural question. She asks, "How many people have you helped?" And Thomas, he tells her he's never counted. He says, "Kindness isn't a number." I just want you to let the weight of that perspective settle for a second. Thomas isn't keeping a ledger. He isn't out here trying to rack up points to balance out his own past.
He follows it up with this: it is a choice. He helps people not to keep a tally, but as an intentional, everyday act of grace. He simply tries to leave a little light behind wherever he goes. And as those words kind of wash over Emma, she thinks about the person she lost, the letter, the garden, the whole shebang. She realizes that just like Thomas's kindness is a daily choice, holding on to her pain or finally letting it go is absolutely a choice too.
This is where Emma finally grasps an absolutely crucial point. A life is not defined by its worst day. Let me say that again. A person is not defined by their biggest mistake. She understands now that her painful missteps do not dictate the end of her story. A story doesn't end just because one chapter was agonizing to read, right? There is always another page to turn. There's always another morning, and another opportunity to choose exactly who we want to become.
Moving into Section 2, Leaving the Past Behind.
Armed with this entirely new perspective, Emma picks up her suitcase to head home. She boards an ordinary morning train, but right before she does, Thomas passes the brass lantern to her. As the train pulls away and Willow Creek slowly disappears into the distance, Emma opens her suitcase. She takes out that old, painful letter and reads it one final time. Interestingly, psychologists note that performing a specific symbolic ritual like this, like reading a letter one last time before consciously putting it away, actually helps the brain formally transition out of a state of grief. It signals closure. But this time she doesn't cry. She smiles. She realizes the past wasn't asking her to return to it. It was asking her to follow these exact steps. Number 1, remember the love. Number 2, remember the lessons. Remember the person she once was. And number 3, continue.
Notice the difference here between fighting the past and living in the present. As Emma rests her head against the train window, watching those sunlit fields pass by, for the first time in years, she isn't agonizing over yesterday. And she isn't terrified of tomorrow. She is simply here, in this exact moment. She learns that true peace doesn't begin when everything is perfectly fixed, or when every single question is neatly answered. Peace begins when we finally stop fighting the past and start actually living in the present.
Section 3, Becoming the Guide.
The pacing of Emma's story really shifts as she returns home. We don't get a magical fairy tale ending here, where every single relationship is instantly repaired, or every wound magically disappears. Real life just isn't like that, and the source text really honors that reality. Instead, over the passing years, we see her make conscious, active decisions to transform her healing into steady action. She doesn't know what the future holds, but she knows she has absolute control over these 4 things. She can choose kindness, she can choose patience, she can choose forgiveness, and, crucially, when she makes inevitable mistakes, because she is human and she definitely will, she can choose to begin again. This right here is the framework for handling an unknown future. Over time, Emma never forgets Willow Creek. Eventually, she becomes the person that others come to when they feel totally lost. Strangers sit beside her, friends arrive carrying incredibly heavy hearts, and Emma basically becomes the new Thomas. She doesn't judge, she doesn't rush them, she just sits beside them. And when they are ready, she gives them this exact piece of wisdom. You don't need to see the whole road, just take the next step. And that brings us to Section 4, Taking the Next Step.
I want to step away from Emma's story for a moment here and just speak directly to you. Because the real lesson of The Last Train isn't just about a fictional character, it's about life. You know, you may have missed a train in your own life. You may have made a terrible mistake. You may have lost someone you love deeply. You might be carrying something incredibly heavy right now as you watch this, something you have carried for far, far too long. I really want to acknowledge that burden. It is real and it is heavy. But please remember this, your journey is not over.
We literally cannot change the things we did yesterday or the things that happened to us yesterday. But there is always another morning. There is always another road. There is always another chance. Somewhere in the dark, there is still a small lantern waiting, not to illuminate the entire map of your life, but simply to give you just enough light for your next step.
So tonight, if your heart is feeling tired, I just want you to rest. Take a slow, deep breath in and let it out. Let your shoulders drop, unclench your jaw, just listen to the quiet of the night around you. The night is peaceful, and trust me, the long road ahead of you can wait.
If your mind is racing, trying to carry all of yesterday's problems, let it go, just for tonight. You do not have to solve your entire life before you go to sleep. You don't have to have all the answers right this second. Give yourself permission to just exist in this quiet moment, completely free from the weight of the past. Because here is the beautiful, comforting promise of a fresh start. Tomorrow, you can begin again. So sleep peacefully tonight, wake wisely tomorrow, and carry that lantern of hope forward, knowing that you only ever need enough light for the very next step in front of you.
I want to leave you with this final thought to really meditate on. Where will your next step take you? Remember, there is always another train, and your story is far from over. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I truly hope you found some light here today. Good night.